Brett Wilder, God bless you, sir. You're back.
Matt, great to be here.
God, it is. You and I have met. I was just telling you, you and I have met many times, had great conversations about lamb. You brought me some lamb in one episode. That was awesome. Super delicious. By the way, everybody that saw that episode that went and then engaged in Boise River Lamb, every single person was like, this is the best lamb I've ever had. It's like,
fantastic.
Yeah, because the rest of the lamb is coming from New Zealand or Australia and it's like 4 weeks old. You get Brett's stuff. It's like it was buying yesterday.
Absolutely.
So Boise River Lamb, people can check it out. But what I didn't know at the time is that you're also an ag economist for like U of I, and people in the state listen to you about like policy things. And God, like I feel like an idiot all the time, but this one hit me really hard because it's like, oh God. Like,
Matt,
here's
you're doing great.
You're doing great, buddy. Well, the coffee's good, right?
Absolutely.
I nailed the coffee. Okay, listen to me. Tariffs. Talk to me about tariffs because a lot of people are flipped out about tariffs. I know enough about tariffs to know I don't know squat and it's really complex. So I don't take a position like tariffs are good or bad. Even just talking with you briefly right before we got going, it's like, well, so people want tariffs. Like, let's take onion producers. Onion producers could want tariffs, but they don't have the tariffs right now that they wanted. So there are even different types of tariffs that some would be beneficial for the industry and some would not be. Talk to me about tariffs and ag in Idaho.
Sure. Ag in Idaho, tariffs, trade, obviously a hot topic right now. Lots going on, changes every minute of every day. For the sake of this conversation, it is April 9th, and this might change by tomorrow.
It's 10:52 in the morning.
Might change next minute
Yeah,
while
right.
we're talking.
Right.
This is something we've been talking about for a long time in ag. So just talking about ag in Idaho, it's a huge industry for the state. Right. 2024, we did about $11.3 billion in cash receipts just on the production side. If you talk about contribution to the Idaho economy, it's about $37.5 billion.
Because of money generated and then spent and then generated and spent.
The and value added in food manufacturing.
Gotcha.
And food manufacturing has been a huge growth area. And we export a lot of those products. State of Idaho exports about $4 billion of goods total. 1.2 billion is food and ag. And there's two different ways we calculate that number. The 1.2 billion and the 4 billion comes from Idaho's commerce. That is products that directly leave Idaho, immediately go to export.
Gotcha.
USDA Economic Research Service gives us another number, 2.6 billion for 2023, which is products that originated in Idaho, went somewhere else, and then eventually exported, as well as stuff that went directly from here. So huge industry for the state. And you talk about what we do a lot of in Idaho. It's dairy, it's potatoes, it's beef cattle, beef, it's onions, and we do a little corn and alfalfa. We export a little bit of all those things. Biggest thing in Idaho ag that we export is dairy products. We also do a lot on the vegetable side, which is mostly potatoes and french fries. There's some beef, some live cattle, some vegetable crops, other things back and forth. We do a lot of trades, particularly over 50% of what we do from Idaho is with Mexico and Canada, our trade partners.
Okay.
So just kind of set the stage a little bit.
So the majority of exports go north or south. They're not going east and west.
Mostly north and south. We also do a lot with Asian countries, China, Japan, South Korea, Taiwan.
Yeah, because the beef industry is kicking up harder in those areas. Is that correct?
Beef industry has been sending a lot to China. Just talked to somebody. A lot of that stuff goes into Hong Kong and is repackaged. And so the actual impact of what some of this tariff conversation is going to do is yet to be determined.
Gotcha.
And we are talking about beef, so you can get into the weeds on any of these industries.
Sure.
U.S.'s largest producer. There's three major exporting countries that make up over 50% of the world's exports.
Okay.
The U.S., Australia, Brazil.
And that's beef.
That's beef.
Gotcha. Okay.
And so you start getting into this nuanced picture, and there's a lot of different things going on with tariffs. And the important thing to remember is that tariffs are a tool, and there's a lot of people that are really excited about these things, and there's a lot of people that are very nervous.
Okay. So let's be clear, there's no one size fits all with tariffs. It's not that tariffs are all good or tariffs are all bad. And in fact, you could have the same person who's excited about a certain type of tariff and discouraged about a different type of tariff.
Absolutely correct.
Okay, baby.
We are on the same
Let's
page.
go. Okay, so again, considering everything you've said, the tariffs that we have that are rolling out right now, help me understand how that's going to affect the average Idaho, either rancher, farmer. You pick the industry. I'm not really concerned. Hit me.
So in general, there's really one thing that people can agree on with tariffs, and that is they're a little less efficient than the free market, and as a result of that, we're going to probably see some level of higher cost to consumers. That's, at the end of the day, that's kind of the story. What that looks like and how that's spread out, nobody knows right now. It's going to take us months to figure that out, if not years. You talk about the tariff story, and it's kind of interesting. We've been talking about this in agriculture pretty heavily since mid-January or so. I actually ran a Google Trend search for the word tariff. And honestly, Matt, you should do it. It's hilarious because it's just a flat line and then it goes whoop. Right about
Everybody's a tariff expert all of a sudden.
Right about February 1st. We've got so many armchair economists in this country. I can walk into the gas station down the road and overhear a conversation about somebody talking about tariffs that's never even had this conversation before in their lives.
They don't even know there are two Fs. Wait, there are two Fs, right?
Are there?
I don't know. I was thinking sheriff, actually.
You're good.
But the best part is I wasn't sure all of a sudden. God. Well, here's the good news is with me, I never claim to know. Like, I'm not sitting here. And again, I always temper whatever I think with like, okay, you think A. But dude, you're an idiot. And this is a conversation I have with myself, like in the car alone. I'm like, what do you know? Like, you don't know if it's right or wrong. Like, for instance, I was chatting with somebody just this morning and she was saying, hey, look, they just did like 100% tariff on China or something.
Yeah, 104 right now.
Okay. And I was like, all right, is that bad? Right. And she was like, well, of course it's bad. I'm like, well, how do you mean? Of course it's bad. Like the industry that's going to develop because things became more expensive to import, the person who's then filling that gap that's US based, they're not upset. So like bad for whom, right? Is it always bad for the consumer? Because again, it's like, well, then the consumer is going to pay more, right? All right. But theoretically that we will be spurring industry within the United States. So we'll have more economic growth within the United States, which theoretically will help, quote, the consumer too, right? And again, these are just dumb things in my head. I'm like, oh, wait, you have no idea what you're talking about. Like to myself, like, don't try to figure this one out. Help me understand this then.
Well, and that is the general concept is the general idea is that we are going to make things that come in from other countries more expensive. And by doing that, we're going to spur growth in the US because we're actually able to raise what that output price is going to be, maybe make it within our cost of production so it works for people across all industries. We're not talking about just agriculture. We're talking about electronics and manufacturing, et cetera, assuming we can find the people and the resources to do that and be innovative enough.
Right.
And we'll see how long this lasts, right? Because what we're really trying to encourage is investment into the United States, whether that's domestic or from foreign entities that are bringing manufacturing facilities here. That's also part of what's trying to be encouraged. And you think about this, and it's really, really going to be complicated and interesting to see how it all lays out. We talked about some industries in Idaho that are really excited about it.
Okay, so what are those industries? Who would be excited?
Big one is that I know has put out a lot of information about this is the sheep industry, actually. So obviously that one's close to home. So we actually in 2021 or so, post-COVID, that industry was hit particularly hard because over 50% of those sales are white tablecloth restaurants. Those all shut down during COVID. So there's starting to be a lot of conversation about trade. Huge percentage of their industry of what's sold to consumers is imported. And so domestic producers have been hurt by that. There's been a push for a few years now to add tariffs to imports of lamb meat.
Gotcha. So from a lamb wool grower production situation, they're like, oh yeah, bring the tariffs, forget Australia, forget New Zealand. Let's focus on U.S. grown and Idaho grown lamb.
And there are divisions within that industry about it too, because there's concern that what if this raises consumer prices too much? What if that impacts what we can do?
Because people will consume lamb less if it impacts the prices more.
Right. But that's when you talk about an individual tariff. We've never seen anything this wide sweeping before. It's going to hit everything across the board. So what's that? Is it going to reduce spend on total goods overall? Are we still going to see that interaction? What's that going to look like? We don't know. I think there's a lot more excitement because of the way that that's happening now.
I saw interest rates drop this morning too. That's good. Maybe the tariffs will wind their way into like increasing and then like decreasing interest rates. Things will become more affordable. What do you think?
I obviously can't speak for Jerome Powell, But
come on.
my assessment would be that you view this as we're going to need to try to spur growth again, and we do that through reducing interest rates. That's really the tool that they have. Whether that's going to happen anytime soon is up for discussion.
Okay, let's get back to the ag then. So there are industries like the ag industry that is not 100% unified in positions on tariffs.
Sure.
But at first glance, they say, hey, we are heavily impacted by the import industry from New Zealand and Australia. Mm-hmm. And therefore, it is good for us. It is good for the wool growers of Idaho to have tariffs like this in place.
In general, I would say that's what the majority of that industry believes.
Okay.
And then you have other industries. So that one, their big importer is New Zealand, Australia. Those guys both got 10%. They're pretty happy. They never thought they'd get that one because we actually have trade surpluses with those countries. Now, you have industries like onions, for example. I talked to a couple guys over in western Idaho that have onion processing facilities. And
is that Owyhee Produce?
That's not who I talked to.
Okay, great. Keep going. They apparently did a clip on onions recently. Doesn't matter.
There's a few over there.
Great.
They were telling me that break even for onions is somewhere around $7-8 a ton, and right now, or $8 a hundredweight.
What's a hundredweight?
Per 100 pounds. That's a common
$7 for 100 pounds of onion
at a commercial scale. Yeah,
that's 7 cents a pound, bro. That's why. And again, I'm not throwing shade. Like even if you get 7 cents a pound, you gotta then put that on a truck. You're paying for the gas. You're paying for the driver. You gotta transport that. I mean, like you have quality. You have all kinds of things. Like I'm not throwing shade. That's wild. That's the cost at bulk though.
That's pretty similar to potatoes trade about that range, about $8 a hundredweight. Hundredweight is a very common term in agriculture. That's how we trade.
It's a common metric. Gotcha. Okay, so break even is $7 per hundredweight.
Roughly is what I'm hearing from these producers. They have been hit so hard with imports from Mexico that it's somewhere around 4 to 5 right now. Makes it very hard for those folks to work. So they were all excited. Those guys have been, let's go, let's get this guy in office, let's get some tariffs on the table. And we have a deal with U.S., Mexico, Canada trade agreement, right? At most agricultural products are going to be covered by that. They really want tariff relief. I don't think they're going to get it because it's covered by that trade agreement. So I think.
Okay. So the onion farmers, let's say the onion producers, they want a tariff because they're getting hammered by Mexico. But we have an existing trade agreement with Mexico and Canada that prohibits an additional layer of tariff relief that would be positive to them. So they want the tariff. They're just not getting it.
I don't believe they're going to get it.
Wow. Okay. So we're going to have to absorb a deficit in that regard just because we have an existing agreement in place.
Sure. And trade deficits in general are not inherently bad. And that's been the big criticism of this the way these tariffs were done is the formula is basically our trade deficit divided by 2 with a minimum of 10%. That's basically what it is. Very pedestrian. However, I think one of the arguments that's been made in the economist world is, look, they know this is a simple, very simple formula. I don't think that they started with the formula. We think that probably we started with where we want to get to and then reverse engineered that formula to make it say what we wanted because we're trying to go for shock and awe. We're trying to make an impact. And right now, a lot of the criticism is countries are coming back and saying, hey, we'll get rid of tariffs on you if you get rid of tariffs on us. Well, that doesn't really work, right? Because we're not really importing anything from those countries, right? We're importing a lot of things from those countries, but they're not really importing a lot from us.
Gotcha.
Is what I should say.
Gotcha.
So,
because they're like, hey, we'll get rid of yours, but we're never buying from you anyway.
Right.
So the fact that they'd eliminate their tariff on our goods that we export to them that they import is irrelevant because it's like, well, it's like a 10% delta, like 10% value there, right?
Sure.
Like it's a nothing value compared to the 90% of what we import from you.
Sure. It's
gotcha.
It's negligible.
Okay.
And the other thing
those would be things like Taiwan or something.
Yeah, or European Union, for example.
Okay. So they just don't import a lot of stuff from us, but we import a lot of stuff from them.
And that's an example where we actually do a lot of back and forth. European Union would be an example, but say like Vietnam.
Okay, great.
Where I think the number I saw was like 130 factories for Nike or something over there.
Okay.
We're obviously importing a lot from there, but they're not really importing a lot from us. And the materials that they use to make all those things don't necessarily come from there.
Gotcha.
Another example I saw was, when you talk about a smartphone, right? That's one of the things that we're hitting with the big China tariffs. A lot of the products actually come into China to build those from other places.
Right.
They're getting a very small piece of that pie to start with, but now they're taking the brunt of that tariff. And that's the other argument, is the tariff is paid at customs. So we're paying for it domestically. It's really split, because what happens is that exporter is willing to take a smaller margin to still get their commodity, get their item into our market.
Sure.
So it's not all paid by one or the other. An example that I was talking about this morning is within beef, right? We care a lot about beef in this state.
Yeah. Dude, but FYI, the Idaho Beef Council is running a burger battle in May.
Cool.
And the restaurants applied to be part of the burger battle all throughout the state. So wherever you are, I bet there's a restaurant that's close to your spot. Let's come and do the burger battle. And the Boise Metro Chamber, instead of running their own burger battle, they're going to do a ribeye battle. So
nice.
Yes. So they're going to have members nominate different restaurants, and then Bobby Joe and I are going to go to the restaurants and like rip through ribeyes. So I'm going to be doing like burgers and ribeyes all through the month of May, and then just dumping these like awesome shots on Instagram. I'm very excited.
Fantastic.
Yeah, it's going to be great. Anyway, and if there's one near you, let's go do that.
Okay, I'll have to look it up.
Or maybe we'll have to do like a lamb burger.
Just sneak one in there and not tell them what we did.
Yeah, not tell them. Like, look at how juicy this looks. It's lamb. Yeah, it's great. Anyway, I'm sorry. Keep going. So we care about beef, you were saying.
We care about beef. And beef actually already has a tariff in place a lot of people don't know about. And it's different levels depending on what country it comes from. There's a big bucket that's called all other countries that we actually accept it from. They have a very low threshold for imports. And after we hit that threshold, they then pay a 24.96, I think, % tariff.
Yeah.
Brazil hit that metric in January, and they're still importing, right? Because our dollar here is so strong. We are such a good customer. We're still going to trade. And that's the other thing about tariffs. I don't think it's going to really slow down our appetite as the American consumer that much. I think we're still going to spend. That's who the American consumer is. We are the most sought after economy in the world. And so that's, you get after this, and all of these other economies get very nervous if America's not buying their products. And that's just one example. If we go from 25% basically to 35%, we're still going to import that Brazilian beef. We need that lower end quality stuff. You go to a Denny's and buy a select quality steak, or just for an example of kind of those low end diners where you can buy a cheap steak and eggs deal. That's where that stuff's going. But
I remember the last time I went to Denny's, and it was because they had like a prime rib and egg. And I went there with my wife. We were like in our late 20s.
How was it?
And I go, she got water and I got the steak and I ate it. I ate the whole thing. I would not say it was the best steak. Shout out Denny's.
Sure.
That's the last time I went to Denny's.
And I don't know that they are using import specifically.
Let's not trash on Denny's.
But
I have very fond memories of going to Denny's.
But just places like that is kind of where some of that poor quality stuff goes.
Let's just say lower quality on the grading scale. So you have select, choice, and then prime, or is it select, prime, and then choice?
So it is from low to high, standard, select, choice, prime.
Okay. Where does the standard go? Dare I ask?
There's very little of it anymore in the US. Okay. And so basically you get this piece of meat and there's like no fat flecks in there at all. And it's just like eating leather.
Wow. Like some skinny old mangled cow.
Well, and certain breeds have more likelihood for that. I've only seen one standard carcass ever in my life. It was down in Texas somewhere.
Really? And
it's been 15 years ago, but they've done so much to improve the quality of what they can do. It was probably something that came out from Mexico.
Gotcha. Like a
rodeo calf or something.
Yeah. There was that Lonesome Dove, obviously great book, but they go down to Mexico and are like stealing the cattle, and they're like, these skinny ass, cows. Anyway, doesn't matter.
Well, it kind of does pertain to this, right? Because one of the questions that I've had is, if you have cattle cross state lines and come back but don't change ownership, is there a duty? And so that was one of the big concerns with this. We have a lot of cattle. I actually heard today that the number is somewhere around 85% of the cattle we import from Canada to slaughter here were actually born in America, and we just send them up there to feed because it's cheaper, and then they come back.
Oh, that's a problem then.
Well, depends on how you look at it. If you're the guy that's feeding it and trying to save dollars and go up there and they have feedlot capacity, but if those animals don't change form, in theory, there's no duty, right?
Right.
Also, even if they did at this point, covered by U.S., Mexico, Canada trade agreement.
Gotcha.
So,
and coming back to something you said a minute ago, the United States is the world's best consumer.
Absolutely.
And the anxiety that people have around tariffs is that, you know, the United States consumer is going to get hammered and it's going to be really, really bad. And again, I'm an idiot, so I don't know. But what it sounds like you're saying is, look, there will be wiggle on all fronts. There will be wiggle on the margins of the producers that are exporting to us and we're grabbing their imports. There will be wiggle on what the end consumer pays, how much they pay, what they're getting for it. There will be wiggle on our economy because this will theoretically spur different industry, like, for instance, jacking up or helping the lamb industry in Idaho. But the bottom line is, no matter what, people are going to want to keep dealing with the American consumer. They're going to want to be in our market because we are the best consumer in the world.
Absolutely correct, Matt. Great way to put it.
That gives me some comfort.
Good. And that really is, when we talk about this, I read a column by an economist here a couple days ago that explained it really well. You have to view what Trump's doing right now on the world scale as a game theory problem. And so can go really intense, but if you've ever heard of game theory, you might have heard of the prisoner's dilemma. Are you familiar with that concept?
No, I've heard, like, I don't remember.
So the prisoner's dilemma basically is there's two people who can't talk to each other, or if they do, they don't have full information about what the other one's going to do. If they both collude and don't do the thing, so the prisoner's dilemma specifically is if neither of them rat out the other one, then they both win because they're both get off scot-free.
Right. They both get $5 or something.
Or they both get out.
Right.
If one rats and the other one doesn't, the one that doesn't gets 10 years and the other one gets out or gets only a year.
Right.
Right. So the scenario right now on the global scale, Trump has said, hey, whoever comes to the table first, you're going to get the best deal. And everybody wants into that American consumer. So the scenario is, if you're at other countries in the world, their best option could be, let's just cut America out, screw them. Let's forget about them, just work together. We're going to get the best deal by just making those guys go suffer for what they've just done to us.
Sure.
The reality is a rational player is going to come to us first and make a deal. We're already seeing it with Argentina. We're seeing it with Israel. We're seeing it with some of these other countries. Vietnam's tried to come to the table. Even the European Union has come and tried to make a deal with cutting tariffs. And I think because of that, America's not going to get cut off. America is in a situation where we're going to have some really good deals with some countries. We're probably going to change the mix of who we do most of our trade with. Another really good point that was made is China. There's really two good consumer markets. It's the U.S. and the European Union. China's retaliating with us. We're at 104%. If we maintain that tariff, they're going to route a lot of the things that they send here, and they're going to try to dump it in the European Union, where the other good consumer market is. What's that going to do to their economy? It's going to hurt them worse than it hurts us or China. And so we have all these big international things at play here, and there's players that are incentivized to make better deals with us because they don't want to be hurt worse. If you look at what it's done to currency, a big issue with ag trade is how strong our dollar is. The U.S. dollar has been extremely strong for a very long time, and that makes it more expensive for other countries in the world to buy our goods and very cheap for us to import those things. That's part of this. Talk about the Australia-New Zealand example, just because I know it really well. Those currencies trade at about a 40 to 45% discount to the U.S. dollar. And so if you spend $2 in Australia, it's like spending $1 here.
And again, to be clear, I've actually, the concept that what you're saying, which is people that are hyper motivated to come to the table. This is something, I can't remember exactly who it was I believe it was off air. I was chatting with this person. My apologies. I've chatted with so many people. It's like, I can't even pin down the different ideas, but I was chatting with somebody who had a direct line to the administration, and I think it was a gentleman. His articulation was that, look, Trump is doing whatever needs to be done to get people to come to the table.
Yep.
He doesn't want to hurt America. He doesn't want to hurt other people, but he wants something that benefits America. And so he will do something. He will threaten, threaten something that's less favorable for other people, because he knows that or at least he feels that America is getting a bum deal right now, and we have to do something to improve this. And doing something where it's like, hey, you're all in trouble unless you come to my office. And then we can work something out. And people are like, oh, I'll go to the office. Like, I don't care. And it's like, hey, whoever comes here first is going to get the better deal. And again, once the dominoes start falling, the game theory, the prisoner's dilemma, right? I understand that. Again, once you started talking about it, I'm like, oh, I remember this. And you have the concept that, we'll just band together, but that causes pain for those individual countries too, right? Like that causes a problem for people. So if you're a country and you're like, okay, if I stick in it with these other 50 countries, yeah, maybe we'll work something out. But my country has always depended on what's going on in the United States. And if you're telling me that these guys, these other 49, they might hang in there longer, well then I'm going to go over here. I'm going to get a better deal. That makes a lot of sense. Yeah. And again, once those dominoes start falling, once the first person out of the 50 countries goes, then the 49th person is like, dude, forget you guys. I'm out. And why am I going to put myself through so much pain and suffering with, supply chain problems and all these, I'm just going to go, let's go make a deal. Cause whatever the deal is, even if the deal is only 90% as good as the 100% used to be, right? I'm going to take a little bit of a haircut. It's way better than taking the haircut of disrupting my entire economy or whatever my export economy is. And that amount of time, it's like, hey, I don't like that we're going to take a 10% haircut. I don't like that we're going to have to deal with these things, but that's kind of the way the world goes. If this is what the U.S. says and we want to be in the U.S. market, we're going to have to deal with something. We're going to have to make something work here, right? You can't just demand that the world stays in an economic manner. It stays exactly the same as it always has. It doesn't work that way.
Right. Absolutely right. And I think, as far as Idaho is concerned, as far as Idaho ag is concerned, we're fairly insulated just because of how much trade that we do just with our North and South partners there in Canada and Mexico. And so we're fairly insulated from this whole thing.
And to be clear, those trade agreements aren't necessarily even, the existing trade agreements aren't even necessarily positive for our producers, like the onion producers.
Correct. And it all depends on size of industry.
Sure,
so again, the people that really benefit from those trade agreements are the people that are really on large scale.
Sure.
Dare I say, largely the subsidized industries that we do a significant amount of trade from. But it's the smaller scale industries that have been in decline, that don't have as many government programs available to them, that don't have the same data tools, don't have the same risk management tools. Because we talk about volatility. Volatility is good in a lot of ways. Volatility creates opportunities to make better agreements, to sign better contracts. In agriculture, we have access to futures market tools and subsidized crop insurance products that producers can access. And if the markets take a run up a little bit on some of this news, they can lock in a price above break even if it comes back down. Sure, they've paid a little premium for that insurance or that contract. Sure. But they're protected. And so volatility creates opportunities to make those deals and put yourself in a better situation. Sure. The other conversation is, what's this volatility look like compared to historical? Right now, ag is seeing way less volatility than we saw 2 years ago with the Russia-Ukraine war. Because in that scenario, there was a real fear that we were going to lose a significant portion of the world's breadbasket where they produce a lot of wheat and barley. Right now, it's just trade, right? There's not a fear of somebody setting a bomb off somewhere that's actually going to remove commodity from the world equation. It's still there. It's just going to rearrange where we go.
Man, there's a lot here. Yeah. So bottom line, are you optimistic or are you pessimistic?
I'm optimistic. I'm optimistic that for small industries that really needed this stuff, that there's going to be a chance for relief. I'm optimistic that larger industries that are potentially going to be hurt have some tools available to protect themselves. I'm optimistic that at small local levels, we're going to see entrepreneurs, we're going to see innovative ideas, we're going to see an opportunity open up for people to build businesses. if you have a buy local bumper sticker on your car and you hate tariffs, you really need to sit down and think about how you view the world, right? Because this is great for people in a local environment, because it gives them breathing room. It gives them space to have ideas, to take a chance where they're not just going to get killed by something coming in for very cheap from China or other countries.
Gosh, that's such a great point. Everybody wants to buy local, and then they want the cheapest possible thing out of China.
Absolutely. Yeah, I would absolutely love to support you, Matt. You know, that woolly bully that you're always talking about, that looks cool, but China makes one for 30 cents. I'm going to buy that one, right?
Dude, that woolly bully is wild. Like I'm really excited for the grilling season because like when I was a kid or even in college, it's like the number of times that somebody's drinking a beer and like your elbow hits the top of the grill, or, you know, like the Weber kettle, and you just sear the hell out of your... Bad. But it also allows you to use less fuel, right? Because you have an insulated top now. It's like waterproof, weatherproof. Like it's super cool, man.
Yeah. Well, and so tariffs are part of this trade issue, right? But one of the concerns is also punishing the bad actors that do things like don't pay attention to patent rules and are manipulating currency and are stealing trade secrets. So what's to stop somebody over in China or Vietnam from duplicating that and selling it for
pennies on the dollar?
Pennies on the dollar.
Yeah.
If it succeeds. So that's one of the things that we're trying to get away from with all this policy. And yeah, it's a bludgeon. Yeah, it's a crude tool. I'm of the camp that we should have a little patience, see what happens. Because again, why did we say the date and time at the start of this episode? Yeah, right. Because this might
no longer 10:52.
When I look at my phone again and we get done talking about this, it's probably changed.
Yeah. Yeah. There's like, I am not a business magnate. I am not an economist. I'm an idiot, but I do know that there's always opportunity in the scramble.
Absolutely.
Right. There's always opportunity in, this is a terrible example, but I love jujitsu. Right. I've been a black belt in jiu-jitsu for almost 11 years. It's part of me like it's my left arm. And I can tell you that, you know, when you're a white belt and you just start out, you don't want any movement. You just like want and you're holding on like for dear life. Just like, and as I got better, it's like, man, let go. Yeah. Find the opportunity in the scramble. See your way through the chaos, because the person who can see their way through the chaos is the one that finds the sub. That's it. Like, that's the crucial point. And now even in life, it's like, don't hope that the world stays static. Hope that the world moves and you move and you get in the right position and then bam, right? Like, for instance, look at this podcast. Yeah. I'm not saying like I'm some great guy, but I started this in 22 and things built and built and built and built. And then finally, like, we hit 2025, years later. And all of a sudden, first we go through the presidential elections where everybody realizes like, oh my God, podcasts are like a thing. They're like a real thing, So all of a sudden people started focusing on podcasts. And then we hit the legislative session. You apply a podcast format to the Idaho legislative session. And we have, like, I did 170 episodes in 90 days following almost every possible thing you could follow in the state. And you had industry experts, you had directors of departments, you had the actual legislators, senators, and representatives, the whole thing. You have those people come in and it's like, don't hope that everything stays the same. Just work and work and work and position yourself so when it hits, you're ready, man.
It's been fantastic, honestly. And, in the extension role, I talk to farmers in different commodity groups, just trying to learn what's going on. And these guys have started to send me podcast links and say, hey, I was doing some spring work in the tractor and I listened to this podcast. You should check it out next time you're driving down the highway. This is how people are getting news now. They're not watching the daily news all the time necessarily as their sole news source. Some of that still happens, but people are busy. People need something they can do on the go. People have a commute. People sitting in the tractor. There's been a big push at the university level of like, hey, you guys should do more podcasts because that's what farmers are asking for. They say, yeah, that's great and all, but I can't drive 8 hours and go over there and sit through a full day event. Would you mind putting that on a podcast for me so I can listen to it? Man, on the flip side, I have to say that one of the funniest things I've seen about the tariff deal was a post somebody made. So it's like, well, thank God, at least podcast equipment's going to get more expensive.
God, it's so funny because it's so true. But I think it's a beautiful free market. Like, this is the free market of ideas that we have always, like, we believe in free markets. We believe in competing ideas. And this is one of those things. It also applies to the Peter Principle, which is like, listen, you're going to rise to your like max level of capacity. And it's so hard to do this, and it's so thankless, and there's like no money in it, but it's so necessary. I'm just really excited to see where it goes over the next 10 years, because you have people churning stuff out, trying to do things, and you see different perspectives, and you see different people doing different stuff. And like, look, I don't consume, like, I work a lot. Right. And so I don't have the opportunity to consume too many, but when I do, I always try to figure out like, okay, what's this guy doing that's a little different? Like, I was on a podcast the other day, Josh Lustig. Yeah. Really enjoy that guy. He's a younger fellow, has been very, very successful in business. He's trying to bring, what he learned to a different generation, is using the podcast as a way to communicate. And he was very kind, invited me on his show, and really enjoyed the show. I've been at this for a long time. I even learned, I'm like, oh, you know what? He does this thing that's really cool. Or like, oh, he's got like a whole team. It's like, he's got like camera guys and stuff. It's like, this is awesome. Like, the production was fantastic. Awesome. But again, the more of this we have, the more mixing we have, the more chaos and swirling mess, the better the end consumer will have a product. Like the end result of podcasts, the upregulated ones within the state, nationally, locally, the whole thing. I guess Adam Curry, who's a very famous podcast guy, he's been on Rogan many times. He like essentially invented the podcast. Oh. People have been reaching out to me being like, Adam Curry's talking about what you're doing, because he was saying that there's, I guess his point is the greatest opportunity for podcasts to flourish is actually in the state and local level, because nobody's talking within their state. Everybody's trying to grab a piece of the action with like Israel and Hamas. Everybody's trying to talk about, the Middle East. Everybody's trying to do these other things. Like, when in reality, if you just applied this format to your local area, either your county, your state, whatever it is, you would crush, because nobody else is doing that. It's like, yeah, man, I got you, Adam Curry.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah. Bring it down to local level. I know I've appreciated it. So,
well, I'll tell you what, especially at the extension level, like, I would love to have a more formalized thing with U of I. I would love to host U of I, like every couple weeks or every month, whatever it is. Don't try to build the platform yourself. It is really hard to do. It takes forever. And what are you going to have? A studio and recording equipment, and then get talent and all these things that pop up once every 2 weeks, once a month. It's like, that's an ineffective. I'm here every day. Just send Dr. Phil Bass down again. Send you back in. Like, let's get people talking, and the platform's already made, and then it'll go out shoulder to shoulder with the governor. It'll go out. I have Representative Mike Simpson coming in next week, which is great to talk about ag. We're also going to talk. He just signed on to a lands deal, or a lands bill this morning. I got a text message from Commissioner Pickering from ACHD. Anyway, yeah. So like, all of these things, it's like, let's just mix everyone together and get the best compilation of Idaho leaders and issues in one place. And then we don't all, like, there's no need for people to be reinventing the wheel left and right. Anyway, that's my pitch. Fingers crossed.
Yeah, I've heard that pitch a couple times on a couple of your other podcasts too.
Maybe for different, Paul Arrington actually
was
recently.
I just heard.
Well, I mean, that was like last week. And then I started realizing, it's like a year ago, I would have told you, hey, start your own thing. And I told that to many people. And if you want to, I think that's a great idea. But what I have realized is that the pain is real, right? The difficulty of building it, the consistency that it requires, the production cost, all these things. For larger organizations, that's almost guaranteed to be like just a recipe for disaster.
Matt, this is a great analogy for trade, since that's what we're talking about here. So you have an advantage in that you are more efficient at putting podcasts together. You've already got it figured out. You know what to do. So I could make a podcast. I got to start from scratch. I got to buy all the equipment. It's going to take me 10 hours to do what it would take you 1 hour to do. So I'm going to come and have you. We're going to talk. We're going to do a podcast. Sure. Am I capable of it? Yeah, I could probably figure it out.
Right.
But is it worth the time it's going to take? Or would I rather come sit down with Matt, have a cup of coffee and talk about trade for an hour and then not worry about it?
Right.
I think that's what I would rather do. And that's the reason why people are going to continue trading with America. There are things that they do, products that they make that they're efficient at that we want, and they're going to do it, even if it's a little more expensive, even if I hit traffic coming over here this morning, right?
Sure.
There's also things that we make that other people are going to want, regardless of our politics, regardless of what it costs to get it there, because they rely on it. And let's be honest, they don't want to do it themselves. And that is why global trade works, right? I have to bring it back to the fact that I hear a lot of people talking about tariffs and trade, and well, Econ 101 says tariffs bad. And, in general, that's true, but that's also going into the concept of we live in a perfect world. This is an hedonic society. Like Garden of Eden, everything's perfect. It's,
I was like, hedonic, great.
Nobody's doing anything wrong. Nobody's a bad actor.
Right.
The reality is we live in a second best world, right? And policy's not perfect. It's a little more of an art than a science. So we're just going to see what happens, because the reality that we make things that people frankly don't want to do, and people do things that we frankly don't. If we have to do everything ourselves, we're going to have to get real cool about a lot of things. We don't like pollution in the country of the United States of America. We don't like carbon emissions. China's okay with that. And so they make a lot of things that require a lot of carbon emission.
That we rely on.
Sure. And so, I mean, and other countries in the world too. So I think it's a good analogy.
Yeah. I mean, even supplying ag labor, we're going to have to get real cool with dethassling corn at, when it's 110 in the field. We're going to have to get real cool with that real fast.
There's some of the local guys they put out deals and they hire high school kids, whole crews of them for 2 weeks to come help. It's a great thing.
Yes.
Over in Eastern Idaho, they take a week off in October for potato harvest.
Wow. I got to go record that one day.
Yeah.
Yeah. I had Luke and Kenny from Marsing Ag Labor on recently, and man, I told him, I was like, I want to come do it. I would I'm going to be useless. I'll pay you to let me do it, because I'm guarantee I'm not making anybody any money, but just put the rain slick on me in July at 5 a.m. and let me go, and I'll make sure I'll have electrolyte pills and the whole thing. Because he's like, listen, you're out there, you're covered head to toe because your skin will get torn up from the corn stalks. And he's like, you're dethassling it. They watered, so it's humid. There's an ecosystem within the cornfield that exists because it's humid from the water coming off. He's like, it's 110, and you're out there midday just plucking stuff, covered head. I don't know if I'll survive.
There's a method to the madness of all these things.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. You got to be tough. You got to be real cool with that. Anyway, Brett, did we miss anything? And I know we just kind of talked surface level, but I really appreciate your perspectives on things. Is there anything you want to hit specifically?
I think we hit the high points. The big deal is that this is changing
every day.
Tariffs are a tool. Let's keep her calm, not freak out just yet, and wait and see what happens.
Right. Great. And if you want to buy local, you shouldn't mind tariffs. There we go.
Absolutely.
God bless you, sir. Let's do this again.
Sounds good.